Hello, friends. Welcome back to Love Wrestling. Spencer Love here with another interview with someone who not only is a great professional wrestler, but someone I love to interview because they just exemplify positivity in professional wrestling. Cody Deaner, one half of the Deaners, of course, a 20-year veteran in professional wrestling and a fellow Canadian. It's always great to be able to speak to someone from above the 49th parallel. Man, it's great to chat to you. It's always great to watch you wrestle. Let's start her with the softball, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I mean, that's a pretty good intro. It's definitely mentioning I'm from Canada. I'm a proud Canadian. I think the only thing that I'm not glad you mentioned is the fact that I've been wrestling for 20 years. And whenever anyone says that out loud, it just reminds me how old I am and makes my joints hurt that much more than they do on a regular day. So that's the only thing if you can edit that out. Everything else is great, but I'm feeling good. For being someone who's been wrestling for 20 years, I say I'm feeling pretty good.
Welcome back to Love Wrestling with up-and-coming young star Cody Deaner.
There it is. Up-and-comer, blue chip prospect. There we go.
Absolutely, man. It's great to have you on here. Like I mentioned, I've been lucky enough, obviously, to watch you on Impact every Tuesday night, but you've been out here to Edmonton for a couple of events with Real Canadian Wrestling lately. I want to start it off with, what do you find different between, say, the Ontario independent scene or wrestling consistently there versus coming out to the West Coast, maybe wrestling in Saskatchewan, Alberta, BC, consistently as you have been for the last little bit?
I think the one thing that I noticed about being out in Alberta is, I don't know if it was just my mind telling me this or if it was actually true, but I felt like the Alberta fans are a little more of an old school fan because of the history of the Hart family and those things. Maybe it was because I actually went and visited the Hart House while I was there in Alberta, because I'm a huge, obviously as a Canadian, Bret Hart is like the man. So I went out and I just had that on my mind, and just wrestling in front of those Alberta fans, I mean, it just felt like this old school feel. And some of the crowds in Ontario were like that, but not all of them. But every single time I wrestled in Alberta, it's just like this old school mentality. And I guess maybe what I mean by that is there's not a fan that's in the audience that's trying to bring attention to themselves. They just appreciate watching what's in the ring, and they just want to have a good time. No matter what kind of wrestling is happening in front of them, they are there to have a good time and support the guys they like and boo the guys they don't, which is usually support the guy they're supposed to cheer and boo the guy they're supposed to boo, and they just want to have fun. That's my kind of wrestling, man, and that's the kind of fans are in Alberta, and I noticed that right away when I was out there.
Well, and even just the opportunity to wrestle in front of fans, which you haven't had the chance to do with Impact over the last little bit. How different's that been for you? Because I've had the opportunity, frankly, to speak to a lot of people who are really good with the crowd, but there aren't many who are as good as you, in my humble opinion. So what's the difference maybe been there, and what's sort of the approach been over the last little bit wrestling for Impact?
Well, the main thing that's different, and I think most wrestlers will tell you this, is the audience. To me, it's like the third guy in the ring. Well, really the fourth. The third guy in the ring is the ref, and the fourth guy in the ring is the audience. And they, for someone like me who's been wrestling for 20 years, they are a huge part of me deciding what's going to happen in the match. If I want to change something, I can do that because I have the ability to be able to do that, and I do that based on the crowd reaction. When they're not there, there's nothing to feed off of, and there's no adrenaline rush that you get. There's no the timing is completely different, because normally you'd allow for timing of audience reaction, and you'd adjust how you're flowing into the next thing and how you're gonna fire up and all those things. It's all based on the crowd reaction, and all of a sudden that's just been taken away from us. So for me, it's really given me a chance to try to connect with that person that's through the camera lens. Like I'm doing everything for that camera. I am constantly finding a camera. I know where the cameras are at all times. I normally do that anyways when I'm on television, but this brings like a whole other level to that as a television wrestling performer. which a lot of fans don't realize it's completely different than wrestling in front of just a live audience. When you got those cameras on you, it's a completely different animal. So this has been a time to really focus on that. But it's also been a creative time where I've got to do some pretty cool things outside the ring. I've got to do some things like Cody in quarantine with me stranded in a trailer in the middle of the field, and which actually was a short film that has actually been in 9 film festivals and just won Best Comedy at one of the film festivals, which is
very
crazy,
cool,
right? So that never would have happened if this didn't happen. And then also getting to do a match on the Deaner compound and do a cinematic match. Also do some stuff with Wrestle House with Impact Wrestling. So like it's been a very creative time. It's just a very different time. So I've got a lot of other things that I've been able to notch under my belt because of this time, but nothing beats a live audience, dude. I can't wait till the audience gets to come back in.
100%, man. But it's finding the positives in a situation that maybe doesn't have a ton of silver linings, right? Which is something that you preach any time that you're out public speaking. It's really cool for you to do that. I never had any idea, frankly, that you were doing that until you came to Edmonton, like I said, and you did do the public speaking event here. How did that sort of come about for you? Because you always have been a very positive individual. Anytime you've done interviews, you've brought it up. But how do you sort of decide to bring it to the masses, I suppose?
Completely by accident, not planned whatsoever, until I got asked by a former teacher, former coach of mine that coached basketball to me in high school, asked me if I would come and speak at my old high school. They were having this conference, and they knew I was well spoken just from wrestling and also remember me from high school. I was a captain of my football team and basketball team, and I was always comfortable being in front of audiences, whether it was up on stage doing a play in high school or even showing off on the football field or basketball court and just running my mouth and cutting promos in the middle of a game or something, you know? So like they knew that was in me. And just asked me to do it, and it went really well. They asked me to come back again. Then I got asked to go to another school. It just kind of started to snowball, and then I just discovered that there's a whole other world of public speaking and professional speaking. The same way there's a world of wrestling, there's a whole circuit of public speaking, and there's speakers that do it for a living. And I started to get to know people. I just started to network the exact same way I did when I got into wrestling, and all the skills that I had learned for networking and building my brand that I did in wrestling, I applied it to speaking. And before all this crap hit, I was traveling on the road just as much speaking, if not more, than wrestling. I've been speaking all across Canada from coast to coast, loving it. Again, totally missing it. It's insane how much I miss it. I miss it just as much as I love wrestling. I've been doing some virtual presentations like here in my office, but it's not the same. It's not the same. It's just me speaking to a camera. I need that audience interaction, which you get from wrestling. You get that from speaking. So hopefully when we get back to normal, I'll start right where I left off. But yeah, man, it's just something that fell in my lap and really took off.
It's kind of insane to me. I think if I remember correctly, you did an interview in like April or May where you said you had to cancel like 19 straight days on the road between wrestling and public speaking. That's insane in all the coolest possible ways.
Yeah. I mean, that was it's just been crazy, man. It was really a dream for me. I've always wanted to I'm a road warrior. I just want to be on the road. And that's the other thing that's awesome about public speaking. It's the same. I'm on the road just speaking during the week rather than just being on the road wrestling. And yeah, it was a huge hit to me and my family. Financially, really big hit. All of a sudden, I mean, there's no guaranteed contracts in speaking. And I went from being on the road 19 days to just all of a sudden, all that income was completely gone. It just vanished. So it's been a financial hit for me and my family, but it's also, I mean, you got to persevere. And it's something that I preach when I'm speaking is you got to just power through. You got to focus on the positive. You got to don't focus on the negative, push through and be creative. And I've just been able to do that both in my wrestling career and speaking career right now, doing the virtual presentations and doing the creative things I'm doing in wrestling. So yeah, man, I'm just keeping that ball rolling, focus on the positive. And I'm hopeful that things are going to get back to normal, the real normal, not this new normal that they're talking about. We're going to get back to an actual normal because to me, I don't care what anybody says, wearing a mask and having to distance from someone, that's not normal. So that's never going to be a new normal for me.
Yeah.
That's just not how I roll. So when those things are gone, then we're back to normal. That's the real normal. And I have hope that we'll get back there, and there'll be audiences watching wrestling, and I'll be able to give high fives to the kids on the way to the ring and be in schools again soon.
Absolutely, man. How do you find yourself maybe staying positive or maintaining some semblance of mental stability, I guess, in an industry that maybe has been known to not be the most positive sometimes, or not the most uplifting?
I would say the thing that has saved my life that way is my family. I have a wonderful, beautiful wife, and I have 4 amazing kids. So for me, being on the road for 19 days was awesome because, like I said, I'm a road warrior. But then all of a sudden, I'm just taken off the road and I'm just at home. Yeah. And I have that time. I'm like, okay, I can either focus on panicking right now and like jumping on my computer every day and like trying to make things happen that just can't happen. Or I can just, you know what, I'm shutting her down and I'm just going to play with my kids. And I was on the road a lot, man. And now I focus on my kids. I'm present more. And whenever things kind of get tough, whatever industry it's in, and people get negative, I refuse to focus on that. I mean, there's things that are more important than wrestling. Wrestling, I love. I've loved it since I was 5 years old. But my family and my kids are just so much more important to me. So I could have some political crappy thing happen in wrestling, but then I just take one look at my kids and that all just goes away. So it's really focusing on those things, man, the things that really count.
That's beautiful to hear, man. And I love the mentality, to butcher a word, the mentality behind it. I think it's a fantastic approach to professional wrestling and life itself. Tell me a little bit about Giv'er for charity. Was that sort of something that came around at the same time as your public speaking did? Was it something that was a passion project, or how did you decide to found that?
Again, something that has kind of happened by accident. Just because of the nature of independent wrestling and the way it is, I was just meeting a lot of kids. I don't know what it is about me. People have asked me this before. I don't know what it is. I think it's just like maybe it's just a God-given gift or something, but kids are drawn to me. Like when I go into a room, whether it's speaking at an elementary school or when I go down to the ring, I think it has something to do with the fact that I love kids and I approach wrestling remembering what I loved about it as a kid. So I think young children are drawn to that. So I've just been meeting a lot of really interesting kids, and through my travels, kids that have had a rough go in life, kids that might be are deaf, or kids that have special needs, or kids that are autistic, and just I have so many stories of just these kids that I've made a connection with, and then I just kind of got this idea one day as I want to give back to those kids somehow. And I just decided I didn't want to start my own charity because there's already so many great charities out there. I just decided to kind of be the middleman fundraiser for all these amazing charities that are already happening across Canada. So I just started doing fundraisers, and I usually do them alongside with my fans and kids that I've made a connection with. And we raise money for causes that are important to them, things that have helped them out in their life. So yeah, man, that was kind of the idea from it. And I really never knew how much it was going to blow up. My idea was like, if we can just raise like a couple $100 for a couple charities, like that would be great, and keep this connection with these kids. But I started in 2018, and to date, I've raised over $16,000 for different charities across Canada. Yeah.
That's incredible, man.
That is not something that I planned or really expected to happen, but it's something else that really motivates me. I mean, as a business person, I'm motivated by money, but that's not the only thing that keeps me motivated in this industry. It's not just money. Sometimes I would go to the show, and rather than thinking about how many t-shirts can I sell at the merch table, which is a motivator. Any wrestler will tell you that. I was like, how much money do you think I can raise at this show? It became a whole other motivator for me, and it's really kept me motivated. And going back to what you asked me earlier, something else to focus on that's positive. When there is a lot of crap going on, I mean, seeing the young fans and being able to help out some kids that are in need, it really puts things in perspective.
Absolutely. Now, I know as a whole, it's something to be incredibly proud of, but is there maybe someone or something specific that you were able to impact that you'd like to share?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have so many stories. I think one actually is related to this banner I got behind me. I'll raise it up so you can see it. This is actually my logo for Giv'er for charity, and you can see that symbol right there. That symbol was actually given to me by a young fan. When I come down to the ring, I go like this and I say, "Just Giv'er." And I met this young fan. His name's Christopher, and he's deaf. And the first time I met him, we had a great conversation at the merchandise table. His dad was having to do some sign language for him. The second show, he comes back. He had never been to a show before. Loved it the first time. Comes back the second time and comes running up to me, and he's doing this. And I lean over to his dad and I go, "Hey, it's really good to see you guys again, but he's screwing up my hand sign. Like, it's this. Like, I come down the ring, it's just Giv'er." He goes, No. It's not this." He goes, "It's that." He goes, "That's your present." And I go, "My present? What do you mean?" And he says, "That's your sign name." And then he explained to me that, and I'd never heard of this. I go, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, in sign language, usually you spell someone's name by just spelling the letters of their name, or you can be given an honored assigned name, but you can only be given a sign name by someone who speaks sign language." Christopher, this little kid, goes home, takes my Just Giv'er hand sign, and adds a C for Cody, and comes up, "This is Cody Deaner in sign language."
Oh,
and I'm like,
man.
And I was like, wow. Like, I was floored. I was just, it hit me like really emotionally. And so I talked to him and I said, "Hey, let's do some work together, Christopher. Is there any charities that you know of?" And he told me about an amazing place called the Rumball Camp for the Deaf. It's a summer camp that gives these kids an amazing experience. Kids from across Canada, and not all kids could afford to go. So me and Christopher raised money so that more kids could go to the summer camp. And then I also decided I was going to take that present he gave me and I made it my logo for Giv'er for charity. So
That's so cool.
That's just one of many stories of kind of these connections that I have with these kids. And Christopher, we keep in touch. His dad just messaged me the other day and sent me a recent newsletter for the Rumball Camp for the Deaf. And man, there's I should show you this. So after I did this and raised the money for the Rumball Camp for the Deaf, you're going to appreciate this as a Canadian. When I talk to any Canadian wrestling fans, especially older ones, like, well, I'm talking older, like my grandpa age.
Yeah.
When they like, "Who's your favorite Canadian wrestler?" I'm like, "Well, Bret Hart." And they go, "Oh, no. You know who the best Canadian wrestler of all time is?" I'm like, "Who?" And they say, "Whipper Billy Watson." I'm like, okay, now that's old school. That's going back to the day, right? So I started raising this money for the Rumball Camp for the Deaf. I met Derek Rumball, who's the son of Bob Rumball. Now, Bob Rumball started this camp many, many years ago. And so I met Derek, the son of the founder of this camp, and he says to me, he goes, "I think it's really special that I'm doing some fundraising with you and you're connected to this camp. It's really cool. It makes me feel like my dad." I'm like, "Okay, what do you mean? Like, was your dad a wrestling fan?" He goes, "Oh, more so." He goes, "The person who helped my dad start the Rumball Camp for the Deaf was Whipper Billy Watson."
Holy shit.
Yeah. So my friend made this for me. Mark, this is Christopher here. This is me and him at the Rumball Camp for the Deaf. And try not to get the glare there. There's a picture there of Whipper Billy Watson with the young kid.
Holy shit.
Getting ready to
That's so
do
cool.
stuff with the kids. Like, dude, when I heard that and I knew that and that connection, I was like, that was like the universe speaking to me and telling me, I'm doing the right thing, man. I'm doing the right thing. So the Rumball Camp for the Deaf has a special place in my heart, and so does Christopher.
I love that, man. That's absolutely wonderful, and I think it's a great place to leave it off until hopefully the next time we get a chance to chat. But, of course, I don't like going over my match times, especially considering I can't wrestle worth a damn. So, Cody, wherever people can keep track of you, whether it's your public speaking, your professional wrestling, Just Giv'er for charity, anything along those lines, where can they keep track of you online?
The easiest thing is go to codydeaner.com. I've been around for 20 years, so I'm old school. I still have a website. But I also have all the social media too. I don't have TikTok yet, so don't try to find me on there. But I have Twitter, I have Instagram, I have Facebook. You can find all of those. It's just at Cody Deaner, but you can find them all through CodyDeaner.com. My very public email is on there. So promoters want to book me for a wrestling event, there it is. It's there at CodyDeaner.com. Schools, principals, businesses want to book me for a public speaking event. It's at CodyDeaner.com. So I love interacting with my fans. So you can find me on there and reach out to me, and hopefully we can chat.
100%, man, and hopefully sooner rather than later we get the opportunity to chat again, whether it's over Zoom or whether you're back here in Edmonton sooner rather than later. Either way, man, I'm excited for it, and thank you once again for the time today.
Hey, you're welcome. Let's set it up. We're going to say this right now. We're going to put this out in the universe. I will be back in Edmonton wrestling, and it's going to get back to normal. And when I'm back out there, we can do this in person.
Love to hear it, man. I will see you soon. Thank you guys for tuning in to the latest interview here on Love Wrestling. I've been Spencer Love. I will chat with you sooner rather than later.